Hello. Put the Leaky business trailer on for a little bit of background music as we get started. Thanks for joining. What have I called the stream today? Games set in your town. Yeah, I've got a series of games that are all kind of in mundane settings, mundane everyday settings. That's kind of what ties all of today's games together by theme. They are not games of the same genre. And coming up, we have got Leaky Business, which is a deck builder about doing plumbing, which looks quite interesting. The dev of this, sorry it's taken a while for me to get around to this. I did tell the dev of this I was gonna do it a couple of months ago. It looked interesting. I'm glad we got around to it. Not sure what the game gains from being in black and white, but we shall see. And then I've got two games over on itch that I think have both come from patrons. We've got Chair Champions that I've played a few times before. We've got Driving Test Simulator. It's Driving Test Simulator from a patron. Let me have a look. Driving Test Simulator. And that's a publicly submitted one. So thanks for sending that in. And then, yeah, Rob from Buckethead Games is... We're going to check out Chair Champions first. So what does it say here? Now, new unlocking mechanic, office store, mini map, off-screen indicators for empty chairs, quick races, a new character, and a few other things. Okay, cool. Tracks further optimized for speed. That's nice to hear. I mean, this is a really interesting project. So if you haven't seen this before on the stream, I think I've played Chair Champions maybe 3 times now. I always have some similar problems with it that I think I'm just always going to have because of like the nature of the game and the way it's made and stuff. So this is a racing game on office chairs, which is a really charming idea. I like the kind of art that's used in this game. I like the way that it's presented. But I do think that top-down racers have a particular problem of like often not being able to see far ahead. And when I look at the kind of historical examples of top-down racing games, like how much of the track you can see at any given time, you know, they either show you the whole track or they're kind of reasonably zoomed out so you can see everything. So the last time I saw this game, I was kind of talking about how the track was a little bit too cluttered and a little bit too focused on giving the players things to avoid rather than carving a golden route for them to go down, because it's fine to do the kind of micro machines thing of like we're on a goofy track and we've got all this clutter around, but it still does really need to function as a racetrack, and for that to happen you need to have like a golden path down the middle. And I always felt a little bit with Chair Champions that it was kind of missing that. There was like a lot of visual noise, a lot of focus on like putting clutter into the middle of the track, which is kind of funny in places and good for like parts of a level that are supposed to be really hard, but it kind of had the issue of it being all the way around. So let's kind of see how this has evolved, and like I think it's more as a way of showing people the game today. I think this should be whoa, sorry, turn that down on my speakers. So if you see this and it interests you, do go and check it out. I feel like I'm probably going to have similar feelings to what I always have about it, largely because I think this is a game where the art style and the like size of the art is like fighting with the gameplay a little bit. And like, yeah, SE stream in the chat just said auto zoom based on speed. Yeah, kind of hard to do if you're trying to do like a pixel art thing where everything stays the same resolution throughout. Okay, how can I get out of this? Okay, game mode, race against AI. Let me go back a stage. I think I missed something there. Secret code. But this is one that the dev has been kind of like working on, updating constantly, adding new stuff to. So it kind of feels like it's kind of like an itch game that's in a live service mode of just kind of constantly being updated, which is definitely one that it's definitely a process I sort of respect. Yeah, I'm not sure about what you're saying about the art. I think if this was half the size, it would look fine for me, but I'm playing on a big screen, so the pixel art for me on my size of screen is actually so big that I can't really see what things are unless I take a moment to think about it. If they were half the size, they would look more like the thing. So some of that's to do with screen size. If someone's sitting at a large, like a 32-inch monitor or bigger, and they're only a foot away, some of this pixel art is so expanded that you lose a sense of what the thing is meant to be. Okay, gonna be Marvin. Pick a track. We've got Marvin's Home. One thing I would say about this interface as well is everything feels very pushed up to the edge. You know, we've got buttons that go right down to the bottom. You know, there's not really a sense of a safe zone around the edge of the interface. Everything is kind of spread out as far as it can go. So we've got a new shop for unlocking stuff now. If I go back to the title. So many characters. Okay, let's just kind of see the core of the game and do a couple of races. I can't do that one. That's not unlocked. Okay, Marvin's Home, select. I think people should play windowed is not the correct response to the art being too big. The thing is, if you zoom the track out 200%, you make the art smaller and you resolve the gameplay problem of not being able to see enough of the track. You know, you're not making a game for an NES emulator or a SNES emulator or something that people are going to play on a tiny TV from 30 years ago. You're making a game that people are predominantly downloading on itch and playing on their PCs. Oh, sorry, I see what's going on there. Why did it freeze like that? Okay. Okay, so if I keep the other window open, it's working. That's strange. Gotta go and get my chair back. Why is my chair gone so far back? Okay. I'm gonna restart the race. I'm gonna just focus really hard on doing the race and not commentating for the first bit. So I can just sort of experience it as it's meant to be felt as a skill challenge kind of thing. So just to think out loud, I'm not sure why my chair has gone at that stage. It's not sort of super clear why I have to then go and get another chair because I've hit too many things. I do like the negative feedback that we get for hitting the rugs now. I think that's a little bit better. There's still too many points in the track where I'm making choices about which way to go within the same room, which, you know, racing games that have branching paths, they tend to like fully branch you off rather than having loads of little optional bits within the same section. Right, so lots of stuff to like. Like someone said, music has got F-Zero vibes. Music's great. art is great. It's still not serving the game. Stanley in the chat said the camera movement is still too much for me. Yeah, I mean, the camera is better, but we still can't see enough of the track to sort of really respond to it. And I think, Rob, what you described about you can't make the art look good, I don't think that's true. Like, a mosaic doesn't get better by standing next to it, right? Pixel art, the point of pixel art isn't to, like, blow it up really big so people can see it's pixel art. Pixel art is a form of pointillism, right? So if we go to a gallery and see one of these, the picture looks good because we're standing far away from it. It doesn't look good the closer you get to it when you can see, the illusion of it being what it is breaks down. So if I get too close to one of these characters, they just turn into blobs, right? And so you've got like the aesthetic of the pixel art, and you're trying to keep it big and chunky because you want it to look like pixel art. On any decent sized screen, the things are so big that you can't see what they are. But also, I think that's secondary, because I think if everything on the screen I can currently see was half the size and I could see twice as much of the track, it would be a fundamentally better game. From a gameplay perspective, right? I'm gonna try the same track again, so I just need to do some weird stuff because it only streams to Streamlabs when I click into Streamlabs and not the game. You've done a lot of this, like, pushing everything so that it goes all over the screen, and we really want a lot of your menus are like this. They have stuff everywhere and there's no real focal points and everything is pushed right to the corners. Be careful with that. But yeah, I can change the camera, but I don't think the camera movement is the issue for me as much as the fact that we've got just not enough of the track on screen. And I think that and the art thing, like, you can solve both problems by just making everything half the size. I'll try the... I'll try again. Yeah, a lot of the text has got this kind of anti-aliasing around it as well, which... Again, it looks like it would read okay if we were looking at it much smaller, but it feels strange when it's that blown up. Because that style, if that is an actual pixel font that's come from another game or something, remember that kind of anti-aliasing was also designed to be looked at through a CRT, which kind of naturally blurred it and made it look different from that. Yeah, it freezes as soon as I get into the main game. The stream does anyway. I'm gonna go back. I'm going back again so that I can see things at the right size. Can't catch back up once I fall behind. Let me just... One sec. So let's just do a comparison. So if people find this one intriguing, I do urge people to go and play it for themselves, because the issue that I'm going to consistently have with it is that, like, I don't feel like the target audience. But then historically, I have played a lot of these, and I played them because they were like competitive console games that you could play with someone else with a second controller. And I think that's when this type of game really shines. But I think when we're just thinking about like how the gameplay overlaps with the visual design, there's some interesting stuff in the game feel that you can't see from watching it, right? And one of them is that the chair sort of can only move in what's it called, in the cardinal directions, and the character sort of turns left, right, up and down like they would if you were controlling with a D-pad. And that's kind of an artifact of the art style, and it being this kind of gridded pixel art. And that kind of feels interesting to learn. It's kind of interesting to learn how to do a racing game where your character is sort of drifting around in a north, south, east, west direction rather than smoothly turning. And that feels like it's got like a quirk of something that's interesting to master. But then the art style is also kind of creating the situation where the track has to have these harsh right turns in it. And it does kind of make it feel like you're never really... It's a little bit better than it was in terms of having these open spaces in the level design where you can just sort of go wee all the way through. But you never quite get into that situation that you're looking for in high-speed racing games, where it kind of starts to feel like a knife going through butter, or like when you're cutting kind of... when you're cutting wrapping paper with scissors and it kind of glides. There's no real sense of ever getting into a gliding mode. And I will go back to the game in a minute. But and some of that's going to be to do with the feel and the motion of like actually driving the thing. But some of it's to do with confidence. And if I look at, if we were to measure this and work out how big the character is relative to the screen and how much of the track we can see relative to the size of the character. I'm just going to put that there as this example. And then we'll do there's micro machines. Although this is a very square. There's like the SNES micro machines, right? So I guess this is a weird one because it's like I mean, this is super old as well. So I guess we've got a smaller character to screen ratio here than we do here. But if we go... the 3D one, the PlayStation one, has a dynamic camera that can zoom out and in depending on how fast you're going, like someone suggested at the beginning, which is kind of cool because then you can see the cars up close, right? But for gameplay reasons, you generally want to be on the side of having more of the track visible on screen, because then we can kind of see what's coming up and prepare for it. Yeah, these are both 4:3, aren't they? But the amount of track we can see in preparation for like the next kind of set of moves we need to prepare in our head is relatively small. And that means that the kind of reaction window is quite tight. And the amount ahead that you can plan is not very far, because it's all dependent on what you can see on screen. I really do think we should just make everything half the size. Because I mean, look at it. Here are all my arguments for making the game, like, shrinking the pixel art down to 50% of its current size and showing twice as much of the level. You will be able to plan further ahead, which means that there is a more interesting decision space as the players look at the level ahead of them and see all of the power-ups and the obstacles coming up and stuff like that. You will also blur some of these background textures, which I kind of complained about some of these background textures before. You've at least got like they feel toned down. You've done stuff like put the pink outline around the rugs and stuff like that. So at least now some of the hazards are a little bit more obvious. But stuff like this background floor texture will become even kind of fainter, which is good because you want to be able to like squint and just see where the things you can hit are and where the things that you can't are. And the problem with like taking a racetrack and putting it into an environment that's not a racetrack is you no longer have like a very obvious reason to just have a visually clear track for people to drive down. The other thing to think about, I mean, you know, if you want to think of like the pie in the sky reason, is that anytime you make a video game that is based on console games, and this is based on console games, right? This isn't based on a history of games that are played on a PC. This is a console game that is meant to be played with controllers, in theory, or at least that's where it's taking its inspiration from. Then you want to imagine the like PlayStation Indie Store version of your game or the Xbox Live Arcade version of your game. And this, blown up on like a massive TV, is going to look even worse and more visually confusing than it does on my current screen. Because when I'm actually in the game, like I said, if I sit as close to the computer as I normally do, these things kind of lose their meaning in terms of what they are. Nate's making a really good point in the chat, there. So let's have a look. So Nate said, in Micro Machines, he suspects there are a lot of hero assets around the track that basically help you to learn the track because they're not repeated, right? So this is like a very interesting point about level design generally. Like, if there are lots of copied assets, obviously that's good from an efficiency point of view, but you lose the navigational purpose of those assets, right? So let's have a look. PS1 Micro Machines maps. Is there a way we can just look at the entire map from with all of the art assets in? Is that a thing? Are there any like that? So the pool table, it's going to have a lot of repetition in it because it's just balls. Yeah, there's not a way to look at them like that. But my recollection is that there are lots of places on the track where there's a thing that you only see once. Or like, you know, with the cards, it's like this is maybe the only context where we see that card arranged in that way. Yeah, let's do a few more tracks. I'm going to go back to the main menu and just click into so that we don't lose the stream again. There we go. Okay, back to the title. This is like doing something weird where it's overlaying. But yeah, when you make your menus, please try not to put everything up all the way up to the edge. There's like no information hierarchy and I don't know where to look. Okay, so quick race. That's what we want this time. Quick race. Okay, the wheel protects you from carpets and puddles. The boots give you a speed boost. Beware slippery. Okay, cool. Mini tutorial. Can I turn it off now? Yeah, I think I can. Okay, I'm moving back again. Look, the part of the screen I'm actually responding to right now is just that bit of white above my character's head, right? That's all I can actually read and respond to in terms of, like, my kind of decision space, the amount of reaction time I get. It's very, very unforgiving. Like, once you're in last place, it doesn't feel like there's much you can do. And we don't have, like, an active boost or anything, which feels like it might help. But I do feel like the zoom level is going to just continue to be a thing. And this is one of those projects where I feel like I've said similar things each time. And it's kind of like you're adding content, you're doing loads of stuff with this game, and all of that stuff is good, but you've got to deal with the more fundamental stuff. And I think maybe it's just a case of, like, you know, you're treating this like a hobby project, you're staying in your comfort zone, and that's fine if that's what you want to do. But if you want this to, like, really live up to its potential, and I do think it has potential, I think it's very cute. I think this is an excellent, like, funny use of this set of assets. Then you really, really need to attend to, like, the more, like, basic graphical and UX issues that this game has. And the zoom level is one. I feel like some of the visual noise has maybe been dealt with a little bit, but if you wanted this to feel more like a modern pixel art game and less like a sort of SNES emulator type thing, then you could maybe look at sort of narrowing down the color palette and designing things so that the level is, you know, more limited in the colors it uses, so that the things that really matter in terms of power-ups and obstacles stand out more. You've started doing that by, like, adding the pink outlines to things. I think you can go further. You know, just, like, taking big chunks of the game in terms of, like, back up the tile sets, then take them into something like GIMP and just add a colorize to them and go, okay, this level is going to have a light blue, like a very slight blue colorize over all this stuff, and then all of the things that need to stand out will stand out. But I think the camera distance is the biggest issue, because particularly when you're moving up and down, when you're moving left to right, we've got a little bit more to react to, and then as soon as the track requires me to go down or up, the window of time that I have to respond to what's coming up is so small. And it, you know, before I framed that in terms of, like, it becomes a memory game, but racing games always have a little bit of memory game in them in terms of learning the track. The issue that I feel is more that it's like, even when I'm trying to learn it so I can practice the memory game, I can never see far enough ahead to see much. And that's a zoom issue, and I don't think zooming out is going to hurt the pixel art. I think it's going to make it look better. I mean, even, like, having the text half the size is going to make that font look better. It will all look better. And again, you want to, you know, if this isn't a hobby project and it's something you're taking seriously, you want to develop it with the idea that it might be a game that people download from the PlayStation store and play on their massive TV at some point, right? So don't develop it with a you know, Steam Deck in mind as the main thing that people should play it on, or a tiny laptop, because, you know, you should account for that, but it's not the only device the game should look good on. But yeah, part of the reasons why I suck so hard at this is just because there are too many decision points in the tracks as well. It's just... talked about this last time I played it, but racing games, you know, you're on the track, you know where you're going, and then it's all about the micro decisions that you make each term. There's probably just too many decision points in this, and they might not feel as bad if we were more zoomed out and we could kind of see further, but we just can't, because we've got this weird mix of, like, very, very open tracks with lots of decision making in them and not enough visibility to make those decisions. So I love getting fireworks for losing in 6th place. So yeah, I mean, folks have made some interesting like suggestions regarding content and stuff in the comments. For me, the zoom is always going to be the biggest issue. And you'll lose a lot of these kind of the text looks a bit jank because it's got the anti-aliasing on it, and we go on. Just close this down so we'll get ready for the next game, but it doesn't want to close now. One sec. Go to the title. Yeah, I think if you think about what your goals are for that project and like, think about what your goals are for that project and what you want to do with it, because it kind of feels like if you want that to be a serious kind of commercial game, you're going to have to do some bigger changes. You're still kind of tweaking things as if the game is kind of like close to perfect and you're making tiny changes to it, and some of the changes that need to happen are probably considerably bigger. Just having a look. Let's have a look at some SNES fonts. Right, so yeah, that anti-aliasing, I'm not sure where we're getting it from on the fonts, because it's quite nasty, and I think, again, if everything is half the size, you're not going to see that issue, but yeah, I mean, none of these have that, so I'm not sure where we're getting that from as well. This is quite close to the typography you've used in that game, actually. But even then, this is bitone. There's not a bunch of gradients and stuff showing up in that. So yeah, folks, go and check out Chair Champions. See what it plays like on your machine. I really think that suffers on a larger screen, and I think we should all be aspirational and assume that people are going to play our games on big screens. I sort of hate the Steam Deck for making small screens an expectation for indie PC games now, but hey, it's the world we live in. Okay, what was the next game on the list? We have got... I would like to have checked out more of the content, but to be honest, it's kind of a case of if I'm not having fun with the core of the game, it's sort of hard to justify going through and unlocking more stuff, you know? Like a different character or whatever. It's not going to feel considerably different, and I've still just got that issue of it's not hitting the Wii factor of a racing game. Multiple things are causing that. Not being able to see enough of the track, having too much optionality in the track as I go around it. The things I would do if it were my game: shrink everything down 50%, text everything else, push all the menus in a bit so that there's some safe area around them and they're not going all the way out. Go through the asset packs and try and like limit the color palette of anything that's inconsequential and it isn't a particularly the floor tiles, but anything that is not a power up or a character. Try and crunch the color set down so that there are fewer colors, and things that are important look important and things that aren't important look unimportant. Okay, driving test simulator. I'll just see if I've got any notes on this one that the dev sent over. I mean, it's a simulator, so let's see we get how we get on. Can you check the UI and the driving feel of the game? Also, I have a Steam page set up. Okay. If you can review the Steam page, that would be awesome. Okay, yeah, I think that's reasonably... that's a fun thing to do today, because we haven't done one of those in a while. I think I actually looked at this independently when I was nosing around on Steam recently. So, yeah, Endo said take the wheel right approach. Don't just zoom out a little, try it zoomed out a lot. Yeah, that's kind of why I'm saying 50%, right? Because you still keep the ratio of everything. It's just like you're seeing twice as much of everything. Okay, Driving Test Simulator looks like it's an actual simulator. I got very tired of the whole thing of people using the word simulator to ironically refer to like a slapstick 3D game that isn't really a simulator, but this looks like it's actually meant to simulate a driving test. Driving on the wrong side of the road with the wheel on the wrong side. That's not realistic. That's not how cars work. We'll come back to this in a minute. I would say first impressions from the Steam page, you know, the game doesn't excite me because of who I am, but I think this is a good set of screenshots. None of these screenshots look bad, and you've done a very good job of like pacing them out so that they feel like they're showing a variety of things. That is very uninspiring, but I guess someone who wants to play a driving test simulator, that's kind of what they want to see, right? Okay, this is a playtest version. Got it. The driving on the wrong side of the road thing was a joke because we drive on the other side. It's a bit blurry. I'm going to download it. This page has been quarantined. Oh dear. Sad. Yeah, I think just doubling the resolution is fine. You'll still be able to see what the characters are. Again, just think of it, you know, pixel art isn't better because of being able to see the pixels. It's like a mosaic or a pointillist painting, you know? I mean, the most important things often do take time, don't they? That's why I say to like think about why you're doing the project, because it's very easy to just like fall into tinkering on stuff that's enjoyable to do, and that's fine if you're doing it as a hobby, do that. If you're doing it as a serious thing that you want other people to play and care about, then you got to do the bigger changes. Driving test simulator. Play garage. Let's see what I've got. I've got a SUV. I've got a not in demo. I've got a not in demo. I've got a not in demo. I've got a SUV. I think you should have given us 2 cars for the demo, because how am I supposed to know what going from a car to a different car feels like at all if there's only 1 car in the demo? Let's play. If this is your first time, we recommend you take the tutorial. Okay. I think it's usually better to just put people in the tutorial rather than tell them you can't skip the tutorial. Don't give me a debug. Start engine. Press the F key to pay respects. Press W for throttle. E for oh, okay. I do the throttle using W, E, and Q, and they're arranged with what? So just look at Q, W, and E on your keyboard, right? W is the lowest amount of throttle. To the right is 50% throttle, and to its left is 100% throttle. Why is it in that order? Why does it go from left to right? Largest, smallest, in the middle. What is happening? I understand that simulators often have inscrutably random controls. But yeah, what is the deal with that? What? To apply brake, press the space key. That feels reasonably intuitive because it's at the back, right? American date, yeah. Wrong side of the road. You know, American date order for our throttle. To apply, okay. QWE for throttle, F to start the car, brake to is space. I think we're going to be driving with the mouse. I hope so, like Summit Drive and Eco Bear or whatever it's called. On manual transmission, hold left shift to engage the clutch. You can adjust clutch speed from settings. Okay, we're getting a... Come on, guys. This game is not in a good state when you're getting a... giving me a debug every time I go to a new scene. We don't turn the wheel with the mouse. We turn the wheel with A and D. I was really hoping it would be mouse controlled because it would be funnier. Do I need to put the clutch on? Hold the MMB to control the gear stick. Hold. I don't understand. I mean, this is a baby car. This is... Cars in the UK do not have gearboxes like this. I don't even know what these things... Reverse, neutral, drive. Per? We're gonna reverse. We're just reversing, guys. I put my thing down, flip it, and reverse it. Drive? There we go. We're driving. We're driving. Get... Oh, I turned the engine off again. Oh, man. Why is it... It feels very not performant for a game that is claiming to be a simulator. That's going to be a problem because... I mean, people that want to play a driving simulator are going to come to you expecting this to be like American Truck Simulator or something, and we're doing low poly assets and 10 frames per second. And I don't know if there's anything I can do to change that. Piers Park. It's one of those self-driving cars, isn't it? I want to go to the park. I always forget about the Americans driving automatics thing. They're relatively rare over here. Like, if you know how to drive in the UK, you know how to drive manual. We don't... I don't think you can even pass the test in the UK if you don't know how to drive manual. There's lots of things that don't have sounds on. So I think you gotta think about what people come to a simulator for, because there's nothing here that feels, you know, American car aside, oh, it just doesn't run. I'm gonna add another game into the stream today because this is not gonna give us very long. Yeah, I understand, Rob. Making big changes to a game is scary. That's what version control is for as well. I think people always think, oh, GitHub is just for like backing up my work in case it goes wrong. But it's also to help you with game design, because when you've got branches, you can do bigger iterations and break your game to try new things out. Yeah, this is just not running fast enough to run. Right. Dev, if you're watching this, I cannot run your game because it's not optimized well enough. I don't know what it's built in, but a game with these art assets shouldn't be having this problem. I literally just spent £1 million on 16 megs extra RAM, so we should be going okay. It doesn't. There's not enough kind of like audio feedback and stuff for this to kind of really constitute a simulator. I think the target audience for this would be people who, maybe like kids that want to drive a car. Like I know people with kids who are like that, and they will play train simulators and stuff because they can't do the thing in real life. But the problem is that that thing exists, and it exists in a much kind of like higher fidelity than this. So you have to work out what your thing is doing that is different from someone else's. One of the assumptions that is baked in from the game so far is we've had a tutorial that is like telling us how to do things in the car, but it kind of already assumes that you understand what the clutch is and you understand the kind of gear workings for this particular type of car. And you know, I've been driving for 15 years now, and coming from a different country that doesn't usually have automatics, I don't understand how that stuff in the car works. So you've got like a double thing that you need to teach. And if you want to make a driving game, make a driving game. If you want to make a simulator that's like an educational thing that teaches people how to pass their driving test, that's a great thing to try and do. But you might have a few more things to deal with before we get there. So let's back out of Driving Test Simulator. Because it is not functional as a simulation of anything apart from possibly sort of having a stroke while driving. Having a stroke while driving simulator. We'll check out Leaky Business. I'm going to go back to our list and see what else is in the waiting list that maybe fits today's brief, because I want to play more games set in your town. So I'm going to go down to the bottom of the patrons list first. Nope, not those. We go to the public form. I've got like a little filter now for like settings and categories. I've got one for like modern settings. Puzzle about finding the poetry in the everyday. Amazing. I love it when an indie game sounds like a stereotypical indie game. Oh yeah, this looks good. Okay. Give me 1 second. Okay. I have to keep tabs on which games I've actually played, or they'll get scheduled twice. Okay, we're going to check out Leaky Business, and then we're going to check out something called Atmospheric Labyrinth. Have a good lunch. Or have a good work, sorry. Thanks for joining Bucketful. Yeah, the thing about simulators is if you're making like a proper simulator, so there's two things that get called simulators, right? You've got like Goat Simulator and Surgeon Simulator, which aren't really simulating something. They're like silly, and they're using the frame of being a simulator as a joke because actually they're these kind of slapstick physics games. And then you've got actual simulators like Flight Simulator and American Truck Simulator, And the thing about those is they do really need to like have a lot of emphasis on feeling and looking good, because people are playing it for the sensation of like really being there, really doing that thing. And that doesn't mean that they get it right, but it does mean if you're trying to make an indie one, you're going to have to spend a lot of time on getting good at art, or you're going to have to offer something slightly different. And I think you could totally make a kind of more cutesy, low poly game about taking a driving test. But I think maybe then the emphasis is less on simulation and more on, let's make a cute art style, let's make it like a set of driving puzzles where you have to like park in awkward places and stuff like that. There's a thing there to do with like aesthetics and what type of game it is and stuff. So like one of the games I've been playing on my phone recently is what's it called? Is it called You Can't Sit Here? You Can't Sit With Us? No, that's something else. Is This Seat Taken? Right? Like if you wanted to make a game about driving tests and it was like a cute little puzzle game, like something like this, right? Or even something in that low poly style that driving test simulator game was in, but a little bit quirky, a little bit kind of like playing up the fact that you're going to mess up and knock the cones over, and making all of that part of the fun and making it like a kind of cartoonish fun experience. Then you're out of the world of like, then you're out of the world of like the train simulator, truck simulator audience who want your game to be absolutely as realistic and high fidelity as possible. You can never compete with the companies that make those games to make those games. So if you want to make a game about like parking in awkward spaces and stuff, by all means do that, but frame it as a game and not as a simulator, because people that play simulators play like close to AAA quality simulators and probably not much else. You can totally make a game about driving tests and parking and knocking cones over and stuff, but I would go down the route of quirky, low poly, cartoonish, funny. Like make a game where it's funny to fail and focus on that stuff, you know? McAlchemist said, finding a friend that has a shite Intel integrated graphics old laptop to test your game is a good idea. Yeah, exactly. I mean, my computer, this is not a super powerful thing, but the amount of times I come across a game that I can't run is relatively low, right? You know, this PC could run Cyberpunk, it could run Baldur's Gate 3. The games that really suffer are like unoptimized 3D indie games. And this is one of the reasons I always say, like, use whatever game engine works for you, use whatever game engine you get on well with. But one of the reasons that I really do not like Unreal is that it kind of presents itself as an engine for like graphics fetishists. And that makes sense because it's not just a game engine, it's also like a tool that people use for making 3D graphics for film and VFX and stuff. Like there is a VFX course at the college near me, and all they do is use Unreal, and they don't use it for games at all. But like a lot of software, it has all of these presets that are built in to impress the user rather than to create something good. And that's not unique to Unreal. It's not unique to video games. Like audio software's like this as well. If you open up a music software and you load up a reverb or a distortion, like the presets they give you will always be the most over-the-top version of that thing, because one, they want to impress you with it, and two, they want to give you the most exaggerated version of it so you can immediately tell what it is, and then you turn it down a bit, right? Unreal is like that, but with all of these kind of graphical tools and presets that are just like, they're always on as the standard. And then if you get to the point where you've made a game in it and you actually want it to run on other people's computers, you've got to learn this whole other skill set, which is optimization. And the reality is that most people's games never make it to anyone's computers, like beyond the developers, right? So that's like further down. That's further down their list of priorities as developers than like impressing people. Right? So you've got a powerful gaming computer. You want to make a game as a hobbyist. You load up Unreal Engine. You're like immediately, oh yeah, look at all of this lighting and lumen and like particle effects and stuff, and you're impressed. And that's what they want. Because the majority of people who ever use Unreal are never going to make a game that needs to run on anything apart from the computer that they're developing on. And that means that once you cross that threshold of starting to care about other people being able to play your game, you're immediately in optimization territory. And to be fair, this can happen to anyone. When we put the alpha out for Golem Gourmet, which was called Dirt World, last December, Gleb very kindly pushed an update a couple of days later with a bunch of optimizations in it, because that's a game maker game. It's a 2D game, but it's still very resource intensive because of the amount of like objects that exist in that game and some of the graphical stuff we were doing in it. And that's almost worse, because when people see a 2D game with pixel art in, they just assume that it can run on anything, because their idea of what a CPU in a computer does and what a graphics card in a computer does when it relates to games is, that makes realistic graphics, that makes a game look like Cyberpunk. So if a game looks like Animal Well, they have no like tolerance for the idea that their computer might not run it. So we had that issue last year where it was like, people were like, this 2D game must run on anything because it looks like a potato game. Like, no. So we had to like prematurely optimize the game, because like 1 in 10 of the people trying to playtest it was saying, this doesn't work on my Galaxy 4 phone from 2007. It's just, it kind of sucks. It's not something you should have to do that early into a game. If you're doing things the right way, and by the right way I mean kind of co-developing with your playtesters and getting people involved in playtesting as early as you can. The only way you can do that without optimizing early is to make sure you do your playtesting in person and you're taking the equipment along, and you're like, this is why I tell people, start a meetup. Your town might only have 5 people in it. They're interested in game development. But if you get together once a month in a pub or a cafe and you take your laptops around, you can playtest each other's games. Then you get the benefit of playtesting without having to go through that process of like optimizing your game for itch, so that people won't have the experience that I just had with Driving Test Simulator, where, we're there to test out the controls and the UI and all the stuff the developer asked me to look at, and the game is running at like 5 frames per second. So yeah, ramble. TLDR, Unreal's not the worst at this thing that I'm talking about, but it has some of the worst kind of built-in biases towards that. Leaky Business. This is a deck builder that I believe is about plumbing. I like the art style I'm seeing here. I do kind of imagine this looking like the illustration style. I'm looking at it, I'm wondering why it's in black and white, and I hope it's for a good reason, that is not just because it would be easier. Because when I look at this art style, what I immediately imagine is like a urban slice of life 90s cartoon, like Hey Arnold, or this kind of Nickelodeon wobbly 90s animation, but it's kind of realistic and stuff. And I mean, Sam and Max was kind of the same thing. Sam and Max had this same, everything's a bit exaggerated and cartoonish, but the colors that are being used are quite kind of like everyday gritty urban. And when I see all of this, I kind of want to see it like that. So I'm gonna give the black and white a try, but I'm kind of going into it with this skepticism about the black and white, where I'm like, are you doing this as a kind of lazy visual design choice? Would it be better in color? Are we getting a benefit from it being in black and white? I can kind of see where they're going with the jazz, because it's kind of like film noir but soft kind of thing, and maybe there's some implication that the business that I'm running is dodgy, and that's why we're going down this kind of film noir corruption route. Nate said, what are your specs? Sorry, let me just check, Nate. I'm such a not a hardware guy that I just don't have any of these things in my head. 6-core AMD Ryzen 5 processor, 32 gigs physical memory. The graphics card, I think, is a 850. I don't know. Where is it? Display. Is it under display? No, it's a RT. It's a GeForce RTX 3060. I don't know what any of that means. I just copied the system specs for my game off of Noita and hope that it's basically the same. Okay, empty. Let's do a new game over here. My company is called Indie Pipe Clinic. Ah. Okay, we'll just call it Pipe Clinic. Laying pipe since 2026. Build your... Oh, we're doing dice building, are we? I love dice building games. Dice Forge is one of my favourite gimmick-driven board games. It's like a board game where you click the sides off of the dice. And I don't know if anyone ever had the Lego board games that had these rubber dice where you could change the sides, but Dice Forge is like a slightly more serious take on that, where you build the dice. I love this idea. Dice building is just a cool idea. It's always interesting to see how people get around this as a type of interface in a game, because like clicking them in is really fiddly in real life, but it makes immediate sense. Whereas this is like, okay, we've got 6 slots, so I'm basically building a slot machine. Build your die by clicking the faces you want to add. Okay. Is there any reason why I would add the lower one? So I could have all builders. We've got builders and burgers, a question mark. These really need some tooltips to tell us what they do, like a keyword coming up or something, because I don't really know what they do. I'm just going to go back and check. There wasn't like a tutorial I missed, was there? Okay, 5 of those, a burger, a 4, a question mark. Yeah, I don't know what that means. Accept. There's like a cost associated with them. 21, that says it's too low. I don't know where this 21 comes from. So you really got to put the kind of... I don't understand what I'm trying to do here. Ah, okay, that's the value of these. Yeah. Here we go. Food. Gain a set amount each turn, carries over between turns. Workers are used to perform actions. Tools used to repair leaks. Money used to expand your company. Time. Okay. Yeah, let's have these as like hover over tooltips, ideally. Like, we need one here as well, because at the start of the game, I don't really know what this is. Have to match 21 as a value. Okay, so that's 1. The 0 doesn't do anything. The 5 adds... The 4 adds 4. Okay. Can I match 21? I don't have a 6. Five, 4. Oh, the question mark. The question mark is worth... The question mark is worth 4. Okay, cool. Let's go with what it's given us as random. Yeah, I would give people a... Put them in as a preset and then give people the option to change them, and then it's harder for people to like cause themselves friction on the way into the game. Okay, cool. Pipe Clinic. Cobble Street. Turns. 8 turns. We get some money. We get some clocks. I don't know if these are resources we're going to get or faces that are going to go on our dice, but we'll find out. We can get a loan. We've got a chance over here. Stuff that we can... Random chance things. Gusher Road. Takes 9 turns. Okay, let's do the thing that takes fewer turns. Fix all leaks to complete the job. Okay, so is this turn-based or is it real-time? It looks turn-based. Fix water leak. I'm trying. Okay, that needs a tool and 2 workmen, so I need to get those That's a tool. That's 2 workmen. I've got those resources now, I think. I've only got 0 workers. End turn. Bit strange for this to be over on the left. The thing to progress is always in the bottom right or the middle right in left to right languages. That's why it is where it is in like Hearthstone and Slay the Spire and stuff. We read the UX of a page so that next is on the right. It's also why Mario, even though it's made by a Japanese studio, because they were trying to make a global product, they made Mario move from the left to the right. We're doing a lot of pushing things right to the edge of the screen here as well. Right, I need workmen. They cost food, and then I get the workmen. So now I do have the ability to fix the leak. Okay, cool. So this is kind of a diorama that just shows us the issue we're dealing with down here. I think it would be nice to feel like we were dragging these in and doing something to this, even if it didn't really have any optionality involved. The music is very funny. It kind of makes me feel like I should rush when I don't need to. Right, we're going to get a burger, but that requires 1 guy to play it, so we can't do it. So we're going to... Oh no, we'll do that. End turn. Not sure where the... Oh, that's... I'm not sure where the dice comes in. Is that what that is? Okay, we've got... We need tools, basically. 2 guys next turn and a tool next turn. Let's do that. Spend a guy to get 2 food. Let's do that as well. Spend a food to get 2 guys. That was... Okay. I can see, like, the order that you play the cards in being quite interesting here. Look at them. Look at these guys. Okay. I've got enough to do that. We can get rid of the other water leak. This is very, like, off in the corner for something that is so important. End turn. I'm going to end up screenshotting this and moving some things around in a minute. I'm sorry. Okay, so when we got 3 cards we don't want, we can press recycle to discard them to get 2. Can I do the... I need a... Never getting tools. Let's recycle, get a tool card. There we go. 2 guys for a tool. Random discard up to 1. Draw. Customer referral. That uses a... I can't use that anyway. We don't have any, like, visual language to, like, quickly tell us which cards we can afford and which ones we can't as well. Which card games, digital card games usually do have something. Yeah, so we get a thing from our die each time. I really like that, by the way, the use of like a small deck builder where we only draw 3 cards, and then a die that we maybe upgrade through the course of the game that gives us a different resource each time. That feels like a good combination of things to have a lot of crunch out of, because you can like upgrade the die to get like a 1 in 6 chance to get something really good, right? And that can be like a meta game thing as you progress, that you're making that die more powerful, and that sort of represents your company getting more powerful. That's neat. Fix the steam leak. Can't do the water leak yet. Let's do that because we need more tools. The tools are like the hardest thing to get right now. We just need tools. Oh, we need a tool and a guy. But that costs of food and money, which we don't have. Do a recycle. There's lots of good ideas here. The resource economy feels like quite tight. Like you haven't put too many resources in, which is a good idea for this kind of board gamey thing because it's not about how many resources you have. It's about like tying them together in an interesting way. And I think your game is doing that already. There's a lot of little things that could be UX problems that could be resolved by just moving things around a little bit, I think. There we go. Fix the water leak. There's one more water leak. We need to get another tool. So let's do that. And then we can do that this turn. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Upgrade stuff in the deck. They cost 5 money to upgrade. We can buy new cards, but we need money to do it. Does the money here have anything to do with the money in the job? Does that carry over? Because that would be a helpful piece of information. Am I supposed to like stock up money while I'm doing a job and then use it afterwards? This is great. This is very Sam and Max. I'm not convinced about the black and white still. I still kind of, you know, it works well with the music, but part of me is still thinking I want to see this in the Hey Arnold colors. Yeah, so we need to make sure we save money up in the mission. That one gives us 12 money. That's a hard one, though. I didn't do very well in the last one. Let's do the upgrade spin. We got a better card. We're going to do the upgrade spin again. We're going to go to Brookside. I'm just going to take a screenshot of the game now so we can have a think about some of the UI, what do you call it? Positioning. Just putting that over in Canva so we can chop some stuff around in a minute. I would say everything in this game from a kind of interaction design standpoint of like clicking on things in the menus all feels very, very good. I think there's some stuff here to do with where things are that is a little bit confusing, but we'll come to that in a minute. Core gameplay, I really like. So I think if we had the combination of rolling the custom dice to get the resources and then a deck builder of 5 cards, it would start to feel a bit overwhelming. But because we've balanced that by reducing the card draw down to 3, it feels like, I don't know, just feels quite thoughtful. And it also means that you're more likely to get a hand of cards that you don't like, which means this kind of recycle, this kind of gamble, discard 3 to draw 2 mechanic starts to do more work as well. It's a neat little set of things. Okay, so that's a burger and a money to get a dude and a tool next turn. So let's do that. And let's swap 2 dudes for a tool as well, because we're going to need tools. Okay, we can do the steam leak. What steam is increasing the repair cost of this leak? Oh, so we get rid of the steam leak first, and then that's easier to repair, and we can do it in nearly 2 turns. We just need, oh, we need quite a lot more actually. For recycle, burger and a guy. And can't get either of those, so end turn. Burger for 2 guys? Don't mind if I do. Swap a guy for 2 burgers. So it makes such a funny little story in your head. You give one of the workers a burger and you're like, hey, go and get more burgers for the guys. Still don't have any money. Workers are per turn and money carries over per jobs. Okay. Yeah, we need that on tooltips as well, really. Because it's just telling us the name of the thing. And it's like, we're used to getting a tooltip that explains the mechanic. And that means you don't really need much of a tutorial when you do things that way. We are still looking for a tool. We don't have any money. We can do salvage to get another tool. And then we can fix the water leak and we're done. Yeah, I like the idea of things jiggling in turn to the music. Even if it's just like the pipes, right? Like they're kind of rotating to the beat and going meh, meh, and then spitting out in different directions. That would be quite amusing. Okay, we can actually afford some stuff. We still can't afford upgrades because they cost 5. Stockpile gives us 2 tools for spending 2 food and 2. That might be quite helpful. That one costs money, which we never seem to have. So let's go with stockpile. It's interesting because the thing you spend for each card varies. It's not like spending mana. So the deck building feels like you could really mess yourself up with quite a long tail of problems if you buy the wrong thing, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Oh, the wind is blowing that way, I see. Let's do chance this time. We upgraded salvage. Do the one that has the most rewards, I guess. We've got a lava leak. Why have we got a lava leak? That doesn't seem good. Okay, let's get some food. Stockpile some tools. Get an overtime shift. Okay. Okay, so getting workers is at the end of the turn is pointless because it resets to 0 at the start of each turn. Okay. Yeah. There's some stuff you can do with this UI that helps explain the mechanics more, but I will do that in a minute. Water leak, we cannot fix that right now. We can spend 2 food to get a money. Is that helpful? And then can't do either of those. Can't recycle, end turn. Okay, we're getting... Can we do the lava leak? Yeah, we can. Okay, good. And spend food and burgers to get food and money to get more people next turn. Okay, now we've got 3 workers, and we can fix 1 water leak, and we need more tools. Can't afford right now. Okay, workers to get food. Spend burgers to get money and turn. There we go. All stocked up on tools now. And we hopefully roll some workers. 2 workers. Do 2 of those. We can do all of them. We just want to see if we can get some money before we end the... Can we get any money from anything? No. But we'll get 7 from finishing the job. I like this. The kind of jobs feel... They're a decent length, right? They're not too long. They're not too short. I like the interplay of like the leveling up and building the business with the dropping things. It feels like consistent tonally in terms of this kind of goofy jazz and the wacky stuff going on with dropping the building as you build it. It's a neat combination of things. We've got to sell supplies already. Let's see what we can upgrade. Let's upgrade our sell supplies. That gives us 2 money for 2 burgers now. Ah, the wind keeps getting me. Okay, I need to do it when we're right over on the left as far as it goes. Okay, before we go on to the next one, let's just have a quick think about some layout stuff. So, the cards are exactly where you'd expect them to be, right? Because cards are supposed to be in your hand. And this also kind of gives the impression of them being close to the player. So they're the kind of thing that you are using. Like, just like your steering wheel in a car or your gun in a first-person shooter. That's why we have cards where we have them. This, generally speaking, is the sort of thing that would normally be over on the right-hand side because we're using it to end our turn. And every game has it. So if you put it somewhere else, you're fighting with people's existing muscle memory about what games usually do. And that's not just a case of like making sure you copy other games. It's also a sort of, what would you call it? It's a neurological thing to do with how we read images generally and video games and interfaces, that the kind of big kind of next option is over on the left. It's just because that's the order that we read in, so that's the order that we learn to use an interface in as well. It's a similar thing to if you've ever used a self-service in a supermarket. They put the bagging on the direction of the door. And sometimes when it's not on the direction of the door, it feels really confusing because you don't actually get in this with the self-service in the supermarket. You don't get used to it being on a specific side. You get used to it being on a side that's dictated by where the door is. And when they put it the other way around, it's really confusing. Funky Wizard Games said the die and end turn games should be separated. The die and end turn button should be separated. So let's have a look. This is all kind of where it should be. Someone suggested maybe we should separate this out. Let's have a think. So let's just separate some of these bits out and think about that. So end turn would usually be here or here, right? Hearthstone, it's here. What's it called? Slay the Spire, it's here. Rogue Book, it's here, I think. The die is a resource, so it should go to the left of your screen. Possibly, yes. About the resources, right, they're right up here at the top. And that makes sense if we're not using them very much, but they're sort of the core thing in this game. So I'll just show you an example. I'm just trying to cover stuff up as we go so that we get a sense of where things are, because otherwise we're just making things look even more confusing. Okay, I'm going to just hide those for a minute. And we've got these floating around now. So if I go over to a popular video game. So here, one of the things I always find interesting about the UI in Slay the Spire is that they double down on the health, right? And I guess it's because it's relevant in 2 contexts. They have the health up here, because it's a resource that follows you all the way through the game and it's relevant in the story scenes, right? So we need to see our money and our health even when we're not in the card game, when we're outside of combat. So it needs to be at the top because it's like a metagame resource that's always relevant. But they also put it here on the character during the combat because this is actually what we're focusing on during combat, right? So during combat, it's very rare that we're going to look at money during combat, which is why it's up here at the top. But we do need to think about health. So rather than have the health move around and like have it sometimes on the character in the combat and sometimes at the top, they have it always at the top, and then during combat it's here. So we're thinking about how much is that piece of information used in what we're doing. And here we're kind of playing cards and we're dragging them into, you know, these are our tools as a player and this is the situation that we're dealing with. And then this is like the more meta situation of like, how much money have I got? Which relics have I got? And the information I'm going to use less frequently is up at the top of the screen because I don't need to look at it very often. And this is like a set of conventions that goes way back. And if we look at like, I don't know, StarCraft 2, you know, most MMOs and stuff like that, we've got all the stuff that the player interacts with or uses moment to moment along the bottom of the screen. And then the HUD at the top is for like checking resources that you don't use that often. But in the game we're currently playing, the resources you're using are very important and you use them constantly. So I think the way that we should think about this more is that, you know, if this were a board game, which it is modeled on, then these are things that I currently have and they should be down here with me somewhere, right? These are things that I'm using for my turn. And actually, you know, we've put the cards down the bottom because they're the tools that the player is using on their turn. And they need to think about that. But what the game is actually doing in its current state is, again, think about what the top bar is usually for. The top bar is for information I might look at every 3 or 4 minutes. Like, how much gold have I got? Or I might look at in the meta game. It's not for something like where I'm looking down, looking up, looking down, looking up, looking down, looking up, and cross-referencing. But the way that this game currently works is every time I look at a card and look at its cost, I then have to look up to the top of the screen. And I know this might sound really silly because you'd think, why are people so lazy that they can't look from the bottom to the top of the screen? But if you ask people to do that over and over again for like hundreds of times in a few minutes, they do like fail to do it. And it's not so much that we're lazy and don't want to move our eyeballs. It's that we are used to games being designed to be as like efficient as possible in that regard. So when we think of what these resources actually are, they're not really like the money or even the health in Slay the Spire. They are more like the mana that you use to spend on your cards. So they should really be down here somewhere because they're actually very closely related to the cards in the sense that we can't play this card if we don't have a worker, right? The other thing I would think about is that these are actually different types of thing. And like you said, the workers, that they function differently, right? So money is something we get to save at the end of the match, if I recall that properly. So maybe it's a slightly different category of thing. The workers are definitely a different category of thing. They kind of function differently from this other set of things. And if you watch my old lecture video on interface design, we talk about this. When you design a interface, you're using something called Gestalt principles, which are like psychological patterns of how people tend to read images and make associations based on how close things are together and stuff like that. And so when we group things together in a block on an interface in that style, we're basically saying these things are fundamentally the same, but they're not, because this goes down at the end of every turn, right? So what I would suggest is we make sure that the workers are separate in some way from the other things. So food, tools, and money, these are kind of more the same because they're consistent between rounds, whereas these are their own thing, right? Maybe we could have our dice over here because the dice kind of feeds into these. I'm not sure. I think where it was not totally satisfying, and I would kind of like to see this roll. You know, like bounce a fake 3D in thing. We click end turn, bounce a fake 3D thing and go bang, bang, bang across there and onto there or something. I don't know. That's less important, but I think the layout of this is kind of important to think about and fix. The other thing is just that playing these, like spending these things, these clicking on these little things to do the quests or whatever we want to call them, the goals, it feels like a missed opportunity to feel more like we're directly interacting with this. And I don't know really how you fix that. I think maybe even just like putting these floating around where they're relevant out here might feel better. I'm not so sure about that. I don't think it's such a big issue. But it is an issue to have end turnover here because that's not where it would normally go. And you're just creating friction every time you do something in a way that's not how people expect it to be. So I don't know. There's a few things there that could be improved. I'm going to keep playing anyway. I just wanted to jump over to this because there's a couple of issues. I think people will understand the way the resources work better if you separate out workers and even maybe put this in a different style of thing from these, because they work differently, right, in terms of how they carry over and stuff. And if you go so this is how Gestalt is spelt. It's a graphic design principle, but we do use it in interface design for games. And there's lots of explainers you can look up about this. And it's to do with, like, how do we, when we look at things, how does our brain kind of interpret them as being similar or related or whatever based on how we place them? So what I'm talking about there is common region, which is if we put things in a box together, the onlooker is going to assume that those are similar in some way because you put them in a box, right? And that's why someone might get confused if you give them an inventory bar and some of the things in it are items that are consumables and some of the things are like skills or something like that, because they're not actually the same thing, but the design of the interface is kind of telling people subconsciously that they're the same thing. You know, you look at interfaces in games and you'll start to see these patterns of, like, things are laid out and grouped in a way that kind of tells you when they're similar and stuff. Yeah, Gestalt psychology has a lot more going on than just like visual image stuff. But it is this idea that we look at the kind of whole of something first, and then we look at the relations of things inside it to kind of work out what they mean, you know? And you can even apply that to, like, how you read a word. When you see a word on a page, what is going on? You sort of like skim read the whole word and then you put it together to kind of work out what the sounds are and then work out what the word means. We're going to do Quarry Road. I want to do an easy one. But this is great. Like, I'm still not convinced by the black and white. I think if we had more, like someone suggested, if there was more stuff bouncing in time or seemingly in time to the music, it might make a little bit more sense of the jazz and the black and white. But at the moment, it's kind of giving me that thing where sometimes you see a visual design choice and it kind of just feels like it's been done because it's easier. And you can and should do things because they're easier, but they also need to feel like there's a user-facing reason, which is like because it's cool or because it looks cool. And I don't currently think that this looks cooler than the sort of like brown and purple early 90s like Nickelodeon or Simpsons cartoon version of this that it could be. The other thing is, if you did use color, then you could vary the scenes that we're in. When we do one of these jobs, we could vary them by like changing the color of elements so that it feels more different from thing to thing, which is something you lose when you're doing things in black and white. Okay, let's get some tools. That's what we always need. Salvage. Can I fix the sewer leak straight away? I can't, but I can fix the steam leak. The steam is making that cost more, so we get rid of the steam leak first. And then that's the end of that turn. Fix the sewer leak. Need more tools. End turn. Should be able to finish it this turn. We need 3 guys. Cool. So the workers are kind of like standing around because they represent the actual resource of the workers you've got. But I still think having the workers in the same box as the other resources is going to make it hard for people to learn the difference between them. And having them up the top, because again, you're just going up, down with your eyes. This kind of stuff is maddening, because when you first start to understand it, it makes you think, like, are people so lazy that they don't want to move their eyes back and forth from the top and bottom of the screen? But you just have to remember how many times they're doing it, right? And the positioning of things on a screen, and this is also why I keep telling people not to put things all the way to the edge. Stuff like the settings wheel, fine. Like, I'm going to look for that once an hour or something, so it should be at the edge. Most things, if you've put them at the edge, they should probably be like an inch further into the screen, because this is the area that we're actually looking to play the game in, like with a kind of fake border around the edge. Oh, I hate this tiny little building piece. Oh, that's fun. Oh, pick 2 to convert. We're getting rid of 2 things, are we? I'm going to get rid of these 2 things because they're expensive. Oh no, we need the money getting one. Okay. Tool rental. Give me a chance again. Fix all leaks to complete the job. Okay, you're going to just give me another job, are you? 3 workers and 1 tool next turn. Sounds good to me. Get me some burgers for next turn. So the worker's always good. If you can swap a worker for something else at the end of your turn, it's always worth doing, because if you haven't used them, then they go away. Steam leak. Gone. Okay, so these do have a yellow outline, so I think the yellow outlines are the ones we can afford. So there is a tell there to tell us which ones we can afford and can't afford. You could make that even quicker for people by just putting the number in red if that's the thing they can't afford, you know. And again, so many of these things you just think, well, can't people work it out for themselves? Can't they pay attention? We're so used to other games holding our hand for these things. Something to watch out for, something to pay attention to, how other games do these things. One of the ones I noticed in that it's very interesting in Slay the Spire, if you end a turn with like mana left or cards you could have played, and you sort of accidentally prematurely end your turn, it doesn't stop you, but it does do like a little flash to show you that you messed up. So rather than like provide a complete guardrail that stops you messing up, the game just kind of tries to ping you to sort of educate you in the fact that you've messed up so that you're less likely to do it next time. So they're not trying to make you completely dependent on their helper mechanics by going, are you sure you want to finish your turn? It's not a good time to finish your turn. Rather than do that, they just kind of create a little ping that goes, you shouldn't have finished your turn then. Very, very interesting. Watch out for it. I don't know if it's in Slay the Spire 2 yet, because I haven't played it, but in Slay the Spire 1, finish your turn prematurely, loads of mana left, cards you could have played. It does a little flash to let you know you kind of messed up a little bit. Shop. Tool rental, foraging crew, temporary crew. Let's do an upgrade. Damn it. There's like wind going in different directions depending on how high we are. That's fun. It's very frustrating the way that building minigame works, but it also means that we've got this kind of constant tug of war, which is good, I think. Can't do anything else there. I think maybe even just putting the resources here above the cards might make sense. Bulk discount. That's a pretty good card. Go and get some emergency rations for next time. Fix one of the lava leaks. Takes 6 men. Hey, Bender. Sell some burgers. That. And there we go. Always need tools. Gonna get guys from the die, right? So it doesn't seem like we don't seem to actually level up the dice itself. So that's the thing that we mess around with throughout the run. But it seemed like at the start of the game we could only build it a certain way anyway. So maybe that's something you level up as you oh, get 8 money, but block 1 dice face for 3 jobs. Let's do it. The 2 burger faces on loan. Right, okay. I'm going to do one more. Oh my goodness. See, this is when the game shines in terms of the actual black and white art, because now you can sort of see why we want those colors to stand out. But it kind of takes a while to get to that point where you would see the water and the steam and the lava all together. Okay, that one we don't get because that's on loan. Fine. I don't need it anyway. Sell some supplies. Can't do anything else. But Steam is... we need to do Steam before everything else. Mega contract. 2 rations, okay. I'm not getting many tools. Have I broken my... Have I broken my deck and I don't have enough tools in it or something? Is that happening? Fix the Steam leak. And... Steam leak there. What's that doing? Sewer repair cost will increase next turn. Better not. A water leak will spawn next turn. Okay, it's getting tough now. Dang, it's the first time we failed a job. I just couldn't get enough workers that time. I think there might be a thing in this game where it's quite easy to like balk your whole deck. It's good though. I like it. I mean, the presentation of the game and the kind of silliness makes me more willing to play a game that might be a little bit broken. I'm not saying it is broken, but I think maybe when you lose a job in this, it may sometimes be because you like took a card out of your deck you shouldn't have. But the kind of silliness makes that feel like it might be okay. Right, I'm going to stop there because I've got into a state where I'm not thinking about it. Yeah, I do think having these closer to the cards is going to make the game a lot quicker to think about. However you handle that, putting these close to the cards is probably that, and putting the end turnover on the right hand side are the two most important kind of tweaks you could make there. And then in terms of onboarding friction, just make sure that you don't put the player straight into that choice of like you know, having to construct the dice of 21 because I didn't know what that meant and it didn't mean anything after that point. So just want to quickly do one omelette in this because I want to take some of what we were just talking about and apply it here and see if it applies. In terms of just like the thinking about the layout. So it's still kind of, this still fits the theme of what we're looking at today, which is games in mundane settings, although this is anthropomorphic animals, but it is still a game that is fundamentally a deck builder about doing a job. So we'll check this out, and then the last game just very quickly because I want to see how many of the interface things I was talking about still apply here. And this is like a very successful game. So quick play on, I'm just going to do one so we can just think about the layout of this. I want to just review how many of the things that we just talked about sort of apply here in a very like reasonably successful small indie game made by two people. So see what I mean about stuff being on the edge? Hardly anything on the edge. These are on the edge because we don't look at them very often. These are like the trophies to unlock different parts of the game. Most of the stuff you interact with is centered. Things that go together like have their own space and are away from other things. So Rob, if you watch this again later and you're thinking about chair champions, think about the issues I talked about with the menu. Here we've got like a section. It's over here on its own. It's not all the way to the edge of the screen. It's not like butting right up to the other parts. It's got its own space. This isn't the best menu in the world, but it's kind of, things are spaced out in a way that makes it easy to read. So in this one, we don't have cards at the bottom. We've got food that's going to come out on the thing, on the conveyor belt, and then it will be at the bottom in a similar position to cards. But because we're doing a real-time game here, we're taking stuff off of it. And it's a bit weird because we're having to read in a speed-based game where things move. But the way that this game works is it kind of trains you in a turn-based mode before you get to this point. Right? So we do have some information up here in the top right, which is quite far away from where I'm playing. But what you'll notice is all the stuff I'm really playing with is here. Now I do have a score target that I need to beat up here, but I don't really have any control over that, and I'm not using it. It's not one of my tools, right? So if you think of games as a constant like interaction between the tools that the player has, and that can be like the basic mechanics that they can always do, like jumping or playing a card or whatever, and it can be more specific to that moment, like do I have a potion? What weapon have I got? Those kind of things. You've got the tools that the player has available to them, either always or at that moment. And then you've got a situation that they need to respond to. So think of like the range of this. The situation I currently need to respond to is I need to feed Johanna a omelette worth 10 points. That's my goal. But that's not immediate. What I need to do right at this moment is put stuff on the omelette. So all the stuff I need to do right now is localized within the bottom bar and this part of the screen. And yes, it's important for me to know that I need to get 10 points, but actually the goal on every single screen of this is to just get as many points as possible. Right, so we can go to the next one, skip through the shop. Not going to keep this up for very often. I'm just using it to sort of like reinforce some of the stuff we were talking about earlier. Again, Look, safe area around the edge. Stuff isn't going all the way to the edge. Even when that pop-up's there, we've got a good, like, 10% of the screen underneath it. This does go all the way up to the edge, right? That's interesting. And a thing that's different about this is that we don't have a next button because it's not a turn-based game. I think in the turn-based game, they put it here. So it's still on the bottom right of that kind of playing area. But we'd never have a next button in the bottom left or along the left because right is next. The only time we'd have it on the left is if it's a translated game from like Arabic or Japanese or any sort of culture where things read right to left. Benny Bumbler has honey, a honey drizzle. That's a new thing that has been added since I started playing this. So yeah, I do go. All of the gameplay for me is localized in this area. This is my toolkit. The things come out. They go to the bottom. They go here. Everything is here. There's stuff I need to think about here and here. But it's usually stuff I need to think about in the same way. I would like more money. I need to get this target score. You know, I probably look at this once or twice as I'm doing the omelette. But I don't have a running tally of my score anyway, so I don't have anything to compare it to, right? So whenever you're laying stuff out in the interface of your game, or not even in the interface, just generally in a game, think about like how often do people need to look at the thing? How often do they need to interact with it? How far am I asking people to drag things? All of these things. Yeah, it's difficult. It is a difficult balance. But if you look at existing games and you think about why they do things the way they do, then you'll start to notice patterns, and then there's often a kind of obvious right choice. Not always. There's not always an obvious right choice, but often if you sort of take the time to understand why other games do things the way they do, then you can get some shortcuts there. So many windows open today. What was the last game we were going to look at? It was called... Not one of these. Deals on pointillism posters. We ended up on a... Pixel art is a form of pointillism, I guess. The last game I wanted to look at today, because I kind of cut one game out on the fly because it was running so poorly, is... It's called Atmospheric Labyrinth, which is... I'm not going to lie, it sounds like a bad name, but I looked at the screenshots of this and it looked quite interesting. So let's check this one out. So like I said at the start, if you've come in late, the only thing really linking these games together is that they're in modern settings. They are games that are kind of set in the real world or something similar. Just, why am I so lit up today? Because my window is open. What's the UI element that your testers... I mean, ding me on the Discord after the stream and show us. Post it in the UI channel and tag me and I will have a look. Okay. A casual puzzle indie stylized building. Is it a building game? Are we building? Is that a mechanic? I hope they haven't put building down as a genre because it's in a building. Because I don't think... Oh, look. Okay, we're rotating things and we're sliding things around. Okay, we're doing sort of Monument Valley type stuff with like twisting things around and messing around with the environment. Looks interesting. I don't think it's a good title. It just sounds like a description of a game rather than a title. It sounds like a working title. I guess is what I would say. Let's check it out though. Click anywhere to begin. Don't mind if I do. Yeah, I like the look of the game. I like the way that the music and the visuals go together. A labyrinth with endless everyday life. In this endless labyrinth, you need to seek out things that are functional, poetic, or simply strange. Re-examine the rooms that have been with you day and night. Okay, so is this a translated game? Is that maybe why we've got a slightly quirky title? Yeah. Equiverse. Just going to see if there's any notes that come with this. It just says this is our first game and we really value your diagnosis. Okay. I think the reason why I think the name doesn't fit very well is that atmospheric sounds like a superlative or a compliment, and it's like you're giving your own game a compliment. So there's nothing wrong with calling a game a labyrinth, but labyrinth of blah, whatever. Atmospheric labyrinth is like calling your game exciting labyrinth or sexy labyrinth or fascinating labyrinth. You know, when we use the word atmospheric to talk about a game, obviously it can be a neutral thing, but most of the time we're using it as a value judgment when we say, oh, Silent Hill is so atmospheric or Talos Principle is so atmospheric. So it sounds like a compliment. And I think if you put it in the title of a game that is kind of going for this minimalist artsy feel, it sounds a bit, it's a bit of a weird mixed register because there's a lot of kind of, there's a sort of demure, subdued vibe to this game in terms of this, all of the graphic design and music that we've seen so far. And that feels strange to then give the game a name which sounds like a compliment to itself. Love these little guys though. Right, we're looking for unusual things. So I don't directly control characters. I click on stuff and do things with it. So we're doing like a puzzly dollhouse thing. It is a little bit Monument Valley. So I'm just going to open the door for you. And then you go outside, leaving the door wide open. The deafening street was roaring all around me, Charles Baudelaire. Okay, strange. We need to make it look like a quote as well if this is a quote. I'm going to get a quote after each thing. Outside you go, flower. Let life be beautiful like summer flowers. Tagore. Okay. It's a little bit like a pop-up book or something at the moment. I sit at the piano and now I play the piano, and I couldn't have done it. I could not have done it were it not for the benevolent presence that opened the door for me. I didn't know how to open the door because despite being really good at playing the piano, I cannot open doors for myself. just synthing out over here. I don't actually know if the game is I don't know if the game is stuck, so I'm just playing my synth. Yeah. I don't know how I get out of this scene. I've clicked on a bunch of stuff. Maybe this is where it starts to get weird. Maybe we need to look in the cupboards. This person's asleep. Is that supposed to mean something? We've got a bed in a living room. Yeah, I don't know what we're supposed to do here. Is there some... I think part of the problem for me here is that nothing in the game has prepared me for doing any lateral thinking, and I think now we're supposed to do lateral thinking, but so far it was just like open a door and then something happens, which is not really setting us up to, like, for this to be a puzzle game. And I think now it's a puzzle game, but the puzzle is just, can you find the right thing to click on? There's a lot of cafeteria noise for 4 people sitting at a coffee table. I think it's been an unlucky day, this stream. I had a game that didn't work because it was... just not running at enough FPS to drive a car in. And now... I'm stuck in a labyrinth which looked like it was going to be puzzles, but so far... Maybe there's a drag move I'm supposed to do on something. That makes a noise when I click on it. Somewhere I'm clicking is like re-triggering the sound effect. There's something strange. Right, I'm going to restart the game because there's a chance that I got to a bug and that's why we were stuck. But it also just seems like it's a deliberately obtuse game where you're supposed to just work stuff out for yourself. Okay. So I put the plant outside last time, and then it was like, hey, you win. Can eat these things as a Roomba. Yeah, it's kind of giving more like animated doll's house than game at the moment, and that could be fun, but not super like I'm not super getting what it's supposed to achieve, you know. Well, here's some interactions we can do. We'll make it look nice in a particular way. It's a vibes-driven project, fine, but it said look for poetic things. It's like taking the plant, putting it outside. That's poetic. You win now. I don't get it. It's like the game is rewarding me for doing a particular action that maybe felt like it had some meaning, but I don't know if it does. Okay, I open the door. Everyone goes in. My character sits down and plays the piano. I can't do anything now. Every time I click the mouse, it's building up more sound in the background. Like it's re-triggering the ambient sound of the crowd when I click the mouse. Feels more like a bug than something that's supposed to be meaningful. Even when I go out and click on Steam, it's starting to layer up the sound again. It's a strange bug. Like I can open the bed. Yeah, that's it. I can't do anything else. Maybe the game is kind of like making the point that you're supposed to just sit and listen when someone is playing the piano and not click on the mouse, but it kind of feels like we've done a couple of things that were very self-explanatory and now something completely obtuse has come up, so kind of don't feel super inspired to finish that one or to push on with that one, because it's kind of what is the game doing? It's presenting us with a style of puzzle, I guess, but it's listed as a puzzle game, right? But what is the puzzle format here? Because the first one was open a door and you will complete the level. The second one was put the plant outside, which you know, you put the plant outside and then the level tells you you've won and you move on. Okay. Next one, open the door so that people can go inside and listen to some music. Fine. Yeah, I think what Funky Wizard just said is exactly it. There's no premise, like put things back where they're supposed to be, right? So we're looking for a goal in each room that is not self-evident, and we're supposed to infer the goal from just like, what would be a nice thing to happen? Oh, putting the plant outside is nice because it will get some sun. Yeah, or rearrange things to make the place beautiful. That's a goal, right? And it feels like they're trying for something like that, but the goal is changing in each room, and the goal is really something much vaguer of like, do something nice, put the plant outside, make sure people can sit down and listen to the piano. Okay, I kind of get it, but the third one was broken anyway. It's like, open the door to go outside, give the plant some light, and even then it's like, why do I need to open the door for someone that can play the piano? It's like, nah, I don't know. I like the aesthetic. I wish we could see more of it so we could kind of get an understanding of what it's getting at, because it feels like it might have something going for it, but I just can't get past that piano one, and there's nothing, you know, I've clicked on everything in the room. Right, we click there, we've got like whole things rotating. But the game hasn't given me enough to like get to that point where I understand how to interact with the rest of the game. Right. You know, this is this is like, you need to play Monument Valley, right? You need to go and play Monument Valley and see how it teaches itself. Maybe something like A Little to the Left. I think A Little to the Left is an example of what Funky Wizard was just saying, was like, this has like a consistent goal through all of the things you're supposed to do, is to like arrange things so that they're beautiful. Whereas this one, it's like, I'm going to try it one more time because I'm very frustrated. I want to see those twisting things around, changing the rooms puzzles. But they weren't introduced in the time, and it felt like there was a bug happening, and maybe I was experiencing a bug, maybe I'd done the wrong thing, and then the game was just making a point out of it by being like, hey, we're not going to let you get past because you clicked the wrong thing. Very unclear. You spent your reading quota on showing me bits of poetry and stuff, rather than helping me understand how to engage with the game. Is there something I can do here that's different from... Someone snores if I click on that bed. Okay. And then I open the door, and that advances it. Okay, this one. Put that plant outside this time. I put a different plant outside. This one. When you click on bookshelves, the books come out and they go on a table. That's the thing they do. I feel like I'm playing a very art house Roblox game. This person goes to sleep when you do the piano. Yeah, it's like these kind of dioramas that not much in them is interactive. And if there is something that you're supposed to do, it's really hard to tell what it is. TV off before they go in? Maybe. I don't know. It's not a very kind of fail-forward puzzle design, though, is it? If you have to, like, restart the whole game to get past it if you do the wrong thing. I don't know what's going on here, unfortunately. And I also don't understand why this person is here and why they fall asleep. Everyone needs the door opening for them because 5 people can't open the door. And then there's someone already in there, and when someone comes in and plays the piano, they go to sleep. I think, you know, from the trailer, I thought there were going to be certain things where I need to click and drag to make certain things work. And maybe I do, but the issue is there's no indication, so things don't highlight when you mouse over them. So I can just sort of like click around and hope that I can find something that I can interact with, but it's not... There's no tells, right? There's no tells to let me know what's interactive before I click, so it just becomes a game of like click on everything. And then this also has this audio bug that keeps re-triggering a sound whenever I click, which is making it quite almost painful to engage with. Yeah, I'm sorry, devs. This looked really interesting. I would love to spend more time with it and get further with it, but I'm just re-triggering a sound effect and having to listen to the same person cough over and over again. Alas. So you can hear where the ambient sound is stacked up. There's something to do with like when I click in a certain place, re-triggering the sound effect. Go back out now? Time to go? I don't know how long this has been in the queue, but I mean, if it's been up on Steam in this format and that is a bug and I can't... Hard to tell. You know, hard to tell if it's a bug or just a very well hidden puzzle. But if it is, it was way too early in the game to throw people off the scent that strongly. There's so much content. There's so many bits that we're not going to get to. That it looks like there's quite a big game in there. Look at the way that water's rendered. That's lovely. Lovely. Wiggly line water. But alas. Alas. Right, I'm going to be back tomorrow morning with 3 loosely cyberpunk themed games because we are checking out Firewall Defend the Grid as there was the main reason that I put the stream together. So I don't have it. I'm going to be downloading it from Itch, I think. That's like a kind of cyberpunk tower defense game. We've got a couple of other games that have a kind of cyber or neon punk kind of feeling to them. Outrim Express, which is like a train strategy game, and something called Petalbots. So, Outrim Express. Going to be back tomorrow morning UK time. Trying to move the streams around this week so that I don't get them all in the same place. Well, not necessarily cyberpunk, but, you know, pretty lasers. This looks great. We're doing... I mean, I know this isn't cyberpunk, but that's a Tron-ass train if I ever saw one. We're doing a train-based defense game that looks quite cool. I love the art style of this. Reminds me a little bit of that, was that kind of like South American themed resource management game with the like hexes that have like blood farms and stuff on it. Reminds me a little bit of that. Petalbots, which is a tactical robots game. And then Firewall, which you will have seen on the stream before, probably. It's like a cyberpunk tower defense where we are zapping things on a almost like circuit board type interface. So I will see some of you tomorrow. If I don't see you tomorrow, have a good Wednesday and a good rest of your Tuesday. And I will see you all soon. Thanks for joining.